Hello and welcome to another Mordian Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's episode, we will be doing a unit review of everyone's favourite tanky boys, the Bullgryns. Just in case you've not seen one of these videos before, what I like to do is firstly start off with a unit overview, going through the stats, war gear and abilities of the unit that we're taking a look at. Then I move on to the deep dive, looking at the pros and cons and how you should be using this unit on the battlefield. And then lastly, we give it a score out of 10 with a thumbs up or thumbs down. And with that said, let's stomp them flat, crush the little uns, and get right into this. So let's start off with that unit overview, and you will find that Bullgryns are an elite choice in the new Guard Codex. You'll find them in the same place as Rattlings and Commissars. That means that they are subject to the rule of 3, so you will never be able to have more than 3 squads of Bullgryns in your army. Each Bullgryn squad comes with 1 Bonehead and 2 Bullgryns, but you can increase the squad size from 3 to 6 by adding an additional 3 Bullgryns to the unit. As you would expect from an elite choice, Bullgryns come with a pretty good stat line. Each one is going to have a movement of 6, a weapon skill of 3+, a ballistic skill of 4+, strength 6, toughness 5, 3 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 7, and a 4+ save. The Bullgryn Bonehead basically has the same stats, but like with pretty much every sergeant out there, he is going to have an extra attack, bringing him up to 5, and an extra pip of leadership, bringing him up to 8. Every single member of the squad, be it Bullgryns or Boneheads, comes with a Grenadier Gauntlet, frag bombs, and slab shield for their equipment. Any number of models can swap their Grenadier Gauntlet out with a Bullgryn Maul, and you're probably going to want to do this, but we'll circle back around to that in just a moment. And also, any number of models in the squad can swap their Slab Shield out for a Brute Shield. Taking a look at the stats for those weapons, the Grenadier Gauntlet comes with an 18-inch range, so it is a shooting weapon. It's Assault D6, Strength 4, AP -1, 1 damage, and Blast. The Bullgryn Maul is a melee weapon that gives you +1 strength, meaning that your Bullgryn will be on a mighty Strength 7 when he's wielding this slab of metal, and it also is AP -1, but is 2 damage. Normally I wait to the deep dive before talking about recommended loadouts, but I think it's so fundamentally important that I have to talk about the Grenadier Gauntlet versus the Bullgryn Maul right now. You never, ever, ever want to take the Grenadier Gauntlet. It's a terrible option. It's got a bad shooting profile as it is, but remember the Guard isn't short of shooty units already. What you're taking Bullgryns for is their combat potential. They are big slabs of muscle that like beating things on the head with big chunks of metal. So the Bullgryn Maul is always going to be better. It'll be able to take advantage of your higher weapon skill, the high strength, the high number of attacks. Look, it's Bullgryn Maul all the way. Just trust me on that one. On the other hand, when it comes to picking which shield you want to take, the Brute Shield or the Slab Shield, it's a lot less clear. And honestly, it probably comes down to player preference or what kind of units you expect your Bullgryns to take on. So the Slab Shield, which is the big riot shield one that the Bullgryn comes with, gives you a 2+ save. This is just great. You go from a 4 up to a 2 up. You stick these guys in cover. They're going to be like a 1 up save. Just makes them incredibly durable against small arms fire and allow you to wade through just torrents of bolter and lasguns. The Brute Shield, which is the small buckler-like one that you can see on the model in the picture of this video, gives you a 4+ invulnerable save. Now, if you're expecting your Bullgryn to be going into a lot of Melter or Plasma, or many other high AP weapons, then you can't really go wrong with going for some Brute Shields. My personal preference is I take a mix. So whenever I take a unit of Bullgryns, I take a 2-to-1 ratio of Slab Shields to Brute Shields. So that means for every 3 Bullgryns in the unit, 2 of them are going to have the Slab Shields, the better armor save, and 1 of them is going to have the Brute Shield for the invulnerable save. The reason for this is I tend to find that I come across a lot more small arms fire, and so I need more 2-up saves. Also, if I'm coming across anything AP -1, AP -2, the 2-up save is better or equal to having the 4+ invulnerable save, and then I just have the occasional 4+ invuln save, occasional Brute Shield sprinkled in there for when someone decides to just level a volcano cannon at my ass. But moving on from the war gear for just a moment, let's take a look at the Bullgryn abilities. And they've only got one. It's called Wall of Muscle, and each time an attack is allocated to a model in this unit, you subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of that attack to a minimum of 1. Basically, guys, they've got reduced damage by 1. If you've ever come across Death Guard with their Disgustingly Resilient, it's the same thing as that. Combining all this together, you will easily see that Bullgryns are a fantastic, tanky, close combat heavy infantry unit. So now that we've done the unit overview, let's get straight into the deep dive and really start peeling back the layers on these ogres. So the main benefit, the main unique selling point of including a unit of Bullgryns in your army is it brings a lot of durability to the table. These guys are hard as nails. Each one having 3 wounds with reduced damage by 1 means that against the most common kind of anti-heavy infantry weapon out there, like plasma, they actually need to get 3 wounds through on each guy. They can't just be like, oh, I'll get a couple of plasma through and that Bullgryn is going to fall over. No, by having reduced damage, it makes you exceptionally durable against anti-heavy infantry weapons, which is fantastic because these guys are heavy infantry. I touched upon this before, but being able to mix and match invulnerable saves and armor saves is just fantastic on this unit. It means that you can build your Bullgryns to be durable against almost any kind of damage output that's going. So if someone charges into you with a bunch of AP -1 or AP dash, just overwhelming number of attacks, you just start tanking those on your slab shields and you're having a great time. If someone starts swinging a thunder hammer at your Bullgryns, just catch it on that brute shield and you have a 50-50 chance of just stopping the damage. So that same kind of logic applies to shooting. As these Bullgryns are marching forward, they're going to be taking a lot of damage on the way in. They're big, they're slow, but they're very durable. They've got that durability to actually get to the target, which is very nice, something that can't be overstated. In comparison to something like Rough Riders, who have got all of the damage output, but are actually really fragile, and there's a great chance that your Rough Riders won't physically make it to their intended target. Bullgryns, the majority of the time, are going to get there. They might not get there intact, they might lose 1 or 2 big lads along the way, but they are going to get there. Because if someone starts just lamping las cannons into you, you catch it on the brute shield. If someone just tries to drown you in bolter fire, you just start taking that on the slab shields. And when they do finally make it to their intended target, they actually have a pretty good damage output. Each Bullgryn will be rocking 4 strength 7 AP -1 2 damage attacks when they go in against an enemy unit. Even a basic squad, just 3. Let's say you took 6, but 3 of them died on the way in. That's still going to be 13 attacks with the bonehead just swinging in there. Now, you're going to be hitting on 3s, which means you're going to hit with the majority of the attacks. Strength 7 means that against all but the toughest of units, you're going to be wounding on 3s as well. AP -1 in this world of no armor of contempt is just great as well, because it means that you'll actually be able to connect those wounds through, even against the Bullgryn's traditional nemesis, which is the Terminators. You can actually do all right now because you've got AP -1 and you do chuck out just a lot of medium strength attacks. You can end up turning even enemy elite units into just tin cans. I think what's important to understand is that Bullgryns can be really helpful to some Imperial Guard players. If you play in a local meta that has a lot of fast assault armies and you always feel like the enemy is just getting the drop on you, beating the crap out of your guardsmen, overwhelming you, or maybe you finally do break through turn 3, turn 4, but then suddenly you've just been trapped for your deployments in the whole game and you've not scored many points. That's a scenario that many Guard players find themselves in, and Bullgryns are perfect for getting yourself out of that situation. Because whatever flies into a Bullgryn unit, 9 times out of 10 is going to get stopped dead and then stomped flat. You really basically need to see these guys as just a big fucking brick wall. All right, they are not a fast unit. They're not a fast assault unit that's going to go over there and turn 1 charge the enemy. No. But if the enemy tries to do that to them, they're going to have a nasty surprise. This is another really big benefit of the Bullgryn because they allow you to take and hold ground. How many of you have been out there trying to force your way onto the objective? And every time you move an infantry squad on, the next turn it's just been blown off again and you don't hold that objective. You don't get the primary points. Oh, so frustrating, am I right? have a unit of Bullgryns, even just 3 or 4 of them just at the front of that advance, and will allow you to not only move onto that objective, but more than likely you're gonna hold it. They could absorb the damage and you'll be able to hold that objective for your next command phase and start earning them points. However, whilst Bullgryns are a fantastic unit, like with any unit in 40k, maybe outside of some of that Tau bullshit, but let's not go down there, it does have some disadvantages. And the main disadvantage of the Bullgryn is that they are slow. I'm not talking about their brain power, I'm talking about their maneuverability on the battlefield. They only move 6 inches a turn. They can advance d6 inches on top of that, but that's about as fast as they're going. They don't benefit from things like regimental doctrine, so you can't start giving them swift as the wind or recon operators or anything like that. Nope, they're pretty much going 6 inches a turn every single turn. This means that they also can't receive regimental orders, so you can't tell your Bullgryns to move, which would be really helpful for getting them up the board. But sadly, the big lads just aren't going anywhere in a hurry. But Bullgryns can receive Prefector's orders from a Commissar, so that's pretty cool. Don't know why, but apparently Bullgryns will listen to you if you're an angry man with a red sash and a black coat. They think that you've got some pretty good ideas. And they do pair very well with them because a number of Prefector's orders really do add an extra layer of tactical flexibility to this unit. For example, you can use Duty and Honor to move and advance your Bullgryn and still do an action with them, which is actually pretty good. You could use Get Back in the Fight so that you can fall back with your Bullgryns and then charge again, because Get Back in the Fight lets you fall back and shoot or charge, but not both in the same turn. You could give them the At All Costs order, which gives them Objective Secured. Bullgryn's Objective Secured is nothing to be sniffed at. Allows you to move on to objective, beat the crap out of any enemies that are there, and then be resistant to many forms of counterattack or people trying to snatch that objective back off you. Show them Steel, show them Contempt, gives them +1 leadership, which isn't that helpful, but also gives you a 5+ Feel No Pain against mortal wounds, which is fantastic because the one weakness that Bullgryn have is that they don't really have any way of shrugging off smites or anything like that, and they can end up getting whittled down very quickly if they get hit by a lot of mortal wounds. If you've got Show Them Steel, Show Them Contempt, that Achilles heel is actually gone and it makes them even more durable than before. But a really good way of using your Bullgryn is to have them with the Prefector's Order Remain Vigilant active on them, because this means that any enemy units, when they're arriving from reinforcements, can't be set up within 12 inches of them. This means that the traditional anti-Bullgryn tactic of dropping down 9 inches away, getting some sort of bonus to charge, and then just getting the drop on them with an elite enemy combat unit can't really happen anymore because you have to stay 12 inches away. That means that either your opponent's going to have to drop somewhere else or he's going to have to drop in, can't make the charge, and then there's a good chance that your Bullgryn will then get the drop on him. So it really does make sense to have a unit of Bullgryn leading at the forefront of any infantry push or advance that you might be doing. But in addition to being kind of slow and being limited in what kind of orders they can receive, Bullgryn are kind of pricey. They're going to come in about 35-40 points a model, and one of the big problems you might find is justifying that cost. I mean, a unit of 3 Bullgryns is going to be able to really absorb a charge. Yes, of course, we're not denying that. But at the same time, you could have got basically 2 squads of Cadian shock troops. Now, of course, Cadian shock troops aren't as tough, don't have as good a save as Bullgryns, but if you're just looking at pure wound count, you're looking at 20 wounds from the Cadians versus 9 wounds from the Bullgryns. And those Cadians will be doing a lot more damage output along the way because they'll be shooting the crap out of enemies. They can do screening. They can receive regimental orders. So the big problem I tend to find with Bullgryns is kind of justifying putting them in your list over just spamming more infantry, because the infantry is a little bit more versatile. As a player, you're kind of going to have to ask yourself that question and decide which route you'd rather go down. And whilst you'll find that Bullgryns put out a lot of medium strength attacks with a decent damage, your damage is nothing to be sniffed at, it's only AP -1. And yes, Armed Contempt is gone, but there are lots of armies and army abilities out there that still negate AP -1. I mean, Guard have got Industrial Efficiency, for example. I believe Iron Warriors and Salamanders just ignore that first AP. Votan still basically have Armor of Contempt. And so by only having AP -1, there will be those times when you swing your Bullgryn into a unit, they start hammering away with those Bullgryn mauls and nothing happens. Because despite the fact you've got the good strength, the AP is just quite lacking and the enemy just tanks it on whatever armor save they may have. So that covers a lot of the advantages and disadvantages and how you might use these big lads on the battlefield. But before we get to the final section and give them that score out of 10, I do want to just have a quick little side note for a moment. Bullgryns pair really well with the new Lord Solar model because the new Lord Solar has an exemption, a special rule on his datasheet, which says he can issue regimental orders to Bullgryns. This allows you to get past many of the disadvantages that the Bullgryns have. You're finding them too slow, they're not getting across the battlefield quick enough. Well, the Lord Solar can tell them to move. Suddenly you go from 6 inches to 12 inches a turn. That's pretty good. That's going to get them there twice as fast. They also only have AP -1, which means they'll struggle against really high armor save units. Well, tell you what, give them the fixed bayonets order, and suddenly they're hitting at AP -2, and they're hitting on 2s, so they're hitting even more reliably. The Lord Solar is a pricey investment, and Bullgryns themselves are quite expensive. So if you decide to go down this route, be prepared. You are going to have to cut points and units out of other areas in your 2K list. But it's definitely something to be aware of. And if you are a big fan of Ogryns and Bullgryns, you need to be taking a look at the Lord Solar. I've actually done a couple of videos on this, on how you compare the Lord Solar with certain units, and I've done a unit review on him as well. So I'll link those videos at the end of this one. But with all that said and done, now let's get to the final score for the Bullgryns. And I'm going to give them a 6.5 out of 10. Not great, but not terrible. I feel like they're a decent unit, and if you need a brick wall, accept no substitutes. And they definitely do fill that niche very well. But I also think that many players will be able to get by without including Bullgryns in their list without a problem. They're not a mandatory unit by any stretch of the imagination. They're a tool for some players to draw upon. And in fact, I think most guard players will find that taking the equivalent points in more infantry will work out better for them, give them a bit more flexibility, improve their firepower, and they'll still have more than enough screening capability just from taking like 20-30 extra bodies over taking 3 or 4 Bullgryn. I also feel like whilst the damage output is pretty good, they are overshadowed by Rough Riders. Rough Riders are a little bit cheaper for a minimum size squad. They're a bit faster. They hit a lot harder. So the issue that Bullgryns have is that they don't out-screen infantry, at best they're equal, but they don't out-combat Rough Riders. So there are other options in your codex which are a bit better for both fighting and screening. But like I said, they are a great brick wall unit. So when you encounter yourself in that situation where you just need to stop the enemy dead, the Bullgryns are great for that, which is why they've got a 6.5. They've not got something low like a 2 or a 3 because they're just completely outshined by other units. No, they have a niche and they fill that niche great. But because they're not an A tier unit, one that you're going to find in every guard list, they're not going to get into that 7+ score range. But that's just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Do you think that Bullgryns are a fantastic unit and do you include them in your list every single time? Or do you think they're a bit more fun and you take them as and when you feel like it? Let me know down in that comment section. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you smash that like button just like you're going to smash your hairy nippled Ogryn girlfriend, and also subscribe to never miss an episode. If you found today's episode particularly helpful and you want to see more content like this, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. One of the big benefits of becoming a supporter is you gain access to the Mordian Glory Discord, an online community with almost 1,000 active members. The MD Discord has really exploded over the last 6 months, and I just want to say thank you to everyone that has become a member. It's always popping off in there. We've got areas for talking about tactics, army lists, also hobbying and painting, and we've even got a pretty spicy meme section as well. And I just want to take a moment now to say a big thank you to all of the latest channel members. So thank you to Maxim, Alex Doosan, Will Ward, Jace Liebman, Jeremy Klein, Quivery Gore, Skagarect, and Resin and Metal Wargaming. Thank you guys for doing your part. I also want to do a shout out to the latest Patreon supporters as well. So a big thank you to Fatty Bat, Milu, Dell, 3B-Fly, Mr. MC Nuggets 22, and Hawk EXE3M6. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal, heartfelt thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a personal thank you to Alan Blunt III, Bonbon Vert, Ross Miller, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, Tom Sutton, and of course, Sly Barney. Thank you guys. Your ongoing, generous Patreon support really is a big reason of how I'm able to do this full time. So thank you so much. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching. And of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.